I'm Sydney Pilut, and I'm here with Maddie Byrd and Maddie Mustion to talk about college basketball. Maddie, if you want to get us started with the Big Ten tournament.
For sure. So as we all know, the Michigan State beat Michigan 65-60 today. Disappointing game, I think, for the Wolverines just because they had a 13-point lead in the second half, which obviously Michigan State overcame. Matt McQuaid had 27 points, which I think was a little bit outrageous and allowed for Michigan State to really come in and get over that hump. What do you guys think that really hurt the Wolverines going into that second half and allowed for Michigan State to come back?
Yeah, I think we kind of saw a similar attack by Michigan State in the game that we just played them a week ago, which decided the regular season Big Ten champs when we played at the Breslin, and we had a lead at the half in that game. And then McQuaid, and I know a few of their other seniors on State's team really stepped up big time and had some solid games that, gave their team the win. So I think Michigan State has, been rallying from behind in a lot of their games. And Michigan, I don't know if it's, taking their foot off the gas, but yeah, we're just kind of losing traction in the second half.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think going off of that, when Michigan enters all of these second halves against Michigan State, they kind of shut down offensively and they go for the threes that aren't necessarily open and try to play the three-point game and rack up the score. And when you miss a three-pointer, that's basically a turnover going the other way.
Yeah.
And they aren't making the smartest offensive choices to keep that lead, and it ends up turning on them. And I think we kind of saw that again for the third time in the row. They made the same mistakes playing the same team. Mm-hmm. So if they're going to go into the tournament and win, they have to learn how to play offensively in the second half and learn from their mistakes and learn quick.
I think also a lot of the games that Xavier Simpson has been playing well, he's really been demanding control of the offense, and I think that if they continue to have him be a leader in that way and just really setting up plays well, and whether that's driving in or kicking it out to their wings, I think that if he's in control, the offense really responds well to him just setting the pace.
Yeah, and I think something interesting too that happened when they played Minnesota, you saw Isaiah Livers have a huge game.
Yeah.
He had 21 points. In their game against Iowa and their game against Michigan State, he only had 8 points their game today. How do you think that he really plays a part into the dynamic of the team? And also, Charles Matthews only had 2 points today. Right. Do you think that really makes a difference, or do you think it's a whole team dynamic instead of just a few players?
I definitely think that Isaiah Livers is a perfect example of needing secondary scoring.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't necessarily have the deepest bench on Michigan. I think we need to, when our players cycle in from the bench, they need to be producing points. And when they do produce points, that's when we win, and that's when we win large. So when Isaiah Livers gets those points, it's secondary scoring, it's getting your starters a break, and it's also keeping the flow of the game while you make substitutions. So I think that's big. And with Charles Matthews, he is coming back off of an injury, but I think he's another key component of if he's not on and getting some points on the board, you might not win the game.
Yeah. And I think Coach Beilein is known for talking a lot about an outlier player, which is really someone that they can, not so much like, a six-man, but really someone that they're always relying on, whether he's already in the game or whether he's coming off the bench, he's showing up big time for the team. And so I feel like in a way that because Michigan's offense could be spread out so across the board with Brazdakis, Matthews, Livers, Simpson, Poole, Teskey, big man Teskey, I feel like even though maybe we don't have maybe two strong standouts that are showing up every game, I feel like if there are multiple players that are, have this outlier mentality of, stepping up to the plate when it's time, and everyone just doing their part, I feel like that could give us a really crucial type of offense and definitely a weapon to be reckoned with going into the tournament.
Mm-hmm. And I think also that's what showed up last year and played Villanova. They had a really deep bench, and I think that's something that really hurt us in the long run. I think going into the tournament, if they can keep players, off the bench with Eli Brooks, Isaiah Livers, just keeping those points, getting as many points as they can, I think it'll really show out in the tournament, and they'll be able to come over teams, if they get to Marquette over Nevada, getting through Gonzaga, up until if they make it to the Final Four national championships. I think it'll really make a difference and kind of defy them from the other teams in their division, the bracket.
Going off of that, we can start talking about the March Madness bracket itself. Just a recap of the major conference championships. You had Cincinnati beat Houston in the American Athletic. Duke obviously took the ACC, Iowa State in the Big 12, Villanova in the Big East, and then Michigan State over Michigan in the Big 10. And another one that was Oregon in the Pac-12 and Auburn in the SEC. So that's kind of where I want to start. So for starters, Florida beat LSU, which was kind of surprising to some people, but then they lost to Auburn. Auburn then took on Tennessee, who had just beat Kentucky, and Auburn came out on top. So I kind of think we have 4 teams there all losing out of this championship spot that were all going in pretty high in the tournament, especially with Tennessee and Kentucky going both trying to get number 1 seed. So how do you think that all of these championships kind of shook up the bracket, the 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, even the 11 seeds, like the 6th, the 7th, the 8th? So how do you think these championships changed someone's route to the Final Four?
Well, I think that, with March Madness, I feel like it's one of those things where everyone loves it so much because anything can happen. And I think with the everyone shaking up in the tournaments, it really just leads to more excitement with March Madness. And I think it's good. I'm really excited to see, if Tennessee can really make it to the final championship. I think they're a great team, but, with a couple of their losses to Auburn, I think that it will just make for a really exciting tournament, especially, with Michigan State winning over Michigan. Obviously, Michigan made it to the national championship last year, but I think that it'll just make for a very interesting tournament, if nothing less, some good basketball to watch, I think, with the matchups that have come out of the bracket.
Yeah, I think, again, going off of that, I think it really just kind of levels the playing field, because people have had their eyes on Duke and Gonzaga and Tennessee and Kentucky. I mean, really, it's just been, people have been beating each other, and then, these underdogs are coming out even in regular season play. And so I think, having these, conference championships turn out the way they have, I think it really does excite people of, I wonder what magic is going to happen in March. And I think that, even looking back on last year, looking at Loyola Chicago making it to the Final Four, I know that was, so exciting for some people to, see a 12 seed reach the, the Final Four games. But I think, people are just excited to root for underdogs, but are also, eager to see these, number 1 seeds, make their season worth, all that they've been putting into, and see if they can really end up on top. So, I think it'll definitely be an exciting tournament.
That kind of leads into the next set of questions about what teams do you want to see, what matchups do you want to see, what matchups do you not want to see, and are there any teams you think we should look out for or underdogs?
Yeah, I think Marquette with Marcus Howard, he is just a powerhouse, and I really think that, they'll have to beat Murray State, which is also intense offensively, but I think, once they get past that, even if they end up playing Michigan and Gonzaga, I think really Marquette will be someone to watch. I think that defensively they're faltering a little bit, but really their offense is something that really makes them a contender and someone to watch. I'd be scared to see them go up against Michigan. I think that, with Cassius Winston, Michigan has a hard time shutting them down. Today with Matt McQuaid, they had a hard time shutting him down. He had 27 points, and I feel like, if they go up against Marcus Howard, it's going to be something that will be pretty scary for the Michigan defense.
I think Marquette is going to be definitely a force to be reckoned with, and just to see teams like that, and I know others, I know Texas Tech got a 3 seed, and a few other names that you haven't really heard about a lot during the season, the regular season play, but that, these teams are excited to be in, playing in March Madness, and it's survive and advance. So I think, Michigan has been proven to be a great team to be playing in the playoffs, and they call, John Beilein the man of March. Like there's a lot of magic that can come out of teams like Michigan, and Tom Izzo has an amazing record with appearances in the Sweet 16 and in the Final Four and the championship game. So I think Michigan State will also be another strong team to watch. But yeah, you've got really strong conferences represented all across the board, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and 7, I believe, 8's coming out of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And off of that, Michigan, their first game, I believe, they play Montana, and then after that it would be Houston or Florida, following then to possibly Murray State or Marquette, then to Buffalo. And whereas Michigan State, might have to face Duke in order to make the Final Four, but kind of has a different route. And I think coming out of the Big Ten championship, it kind of set them up a little better. And going off that, is there any teams that you kind of can would like to make a prediction about going to the Final Four based on their route, so set aside in the tournament with the bracket?
Yeah, I think that if Duke and Michigan State end up playing each other, it'll be really a game to watch. I think that, they're both pretty strong offensively, but I think that Michigan State would be able to top Duke. I think that they would be able to make it to the Final Four. I think, honestly, if Marquette and Michigan end up playing each other, I think that it would be a close game. Obviously, love Michigan, but I think it'd be really interesting to see Marquette in the Final Four. They've been playing great all season. Other than that, I think it'll be kind of a toss-up. I feel like people say, Buffalo is something to watch. I feel like also, Villanova last year had a great showing in the national championship, obviously won. I think that, they could be also a contender in the Final Four, but I think my bracket always gets messed up when it comes to that, because I always choose, teams that have a good showing, and I feel like, to get to the Final Four, especially with last year Loyola, I think I had them losing in Sweet 16. So it kind of just, you can guess, but only to a certain point. And I feel like the Final Four is a point where, my bracket just gets pretty, all X's.
Yeah.
But we'll
Especially
see.
with all the matchups ahead of that, like we have Oregon and Iowa State, and we have a Warford versus Seton Hall, which is supposed to be a good matchup. And there's so many games, and especially when you have your 8 and 9 seed games, that can completely mess up the start of your bracket. So you don't really have that Final Four set. And my last prediction, if you're willing to right now, if you can make a prediction on who you think might take home the national championship this year.
Man, I think I'm going to go with Duke. I mean, Zion Williamson, I know people might be annoyed with all the publicity he's gotten, but I mean, he's an incredible basketball player, and I think not only that, but I've also seen a great leadership side out of him on that team, and I think he's also, as well as he's setting himself up for success, he's setting his teammates up for success, and so I think that is a key part to a national championship team, is that everybody's firing on all cylinders. And so, I think Coach K has been there so many times, but, I think Duke will take it home.
Yeah, I also agree. I think that, I feel like nobody can really shut down Zion Williamson. Yeah. I feel like also, once they get to that point, I feel like Duke is a powerhouse. I mean, everyone says Duke is Duke, and I feel like really if they end up getting to the Final Four, they'll have the power to just really push through and, top whoever it is, whether it's Michigan, Marquette, whoever they end up coming up against into the national championship. I feel like really they're a powerhouse that this year seems to not be able to be beat by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you guys for all your input, and you guys can see what happens in March Madness yourself this week with games starting on Thursday.